Before we begin this unbelievable story, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, your city and your country. We love seeing where our family is joining us from around the world. And if you enjoy powerful hidden history like this, please subscribe, like, and share this video so we can get this story across to a wider audience and together rewrite the false history we were told. Now sit back, because tonight you are about to hear the shocking story of why one nation decided it would rule every ocean on Earth, and why the world may never see another navy like it again. The story begins not with war, not with guns, not with ships, but with fear. Fear of being trapped, fear of being invaded, fear of being cut off from the world. Long before America became the most feared military power on Earth, it was simply a young country staring at a terrifying map. And what that map showed terrified its leaders. To the east stretched the endless Atlantic Ocean. To the west stood the mighty Pacific Ocean. Two vast waters, two giant highways leading directly to America's shores. At first, this looked like a blessing. Two oceans meant trade, wealth, fish, travel, and access to the world. But America quickly learned a brutal truth. Those same oceans that brought riches could also bring enemies. If a hostile fleet crossed either ocean, it could strike the heart of the nation. There were thousands of miles of coastline, impossible to defend by soldiers on land alone. America knew something many nations did not. A country with weak shores is a country living on borrowed time. And so the leaders of the young republic understood one thing with frightening clarity. If America wished to survive, it could never wait for enemies to reach its beaches. It had to meet danger far away, before danger ever saw land. That idea would become the heartbeat of American naval strategy forever. But in the beginning, America was weak. Very weak. In the late 1700s and early 1800s, the nation had little naval strength. Pirates attacked American merchant ships. European powers mocked them. American vessels were seized, crews kidnapped, goods stolen, and the young nation could do little but protest. It was humiliation after humiliation. Then came the warning that changed everything. In 1812, war erupted between America and Britain. The British Navy was then the greatest naval force on Earth, and when Britain sent its ships against America, the young nation watched in horror as enemy vessels blockaded ports, burned towns, and crushed trade routes. Americans realized something terrifying. Without a navy, they were helpless. Without ships, they could not breathe. Without control of the sea, their economy could be strangled like a man drowning slowly in darkness. From that moment forward, the dream began. America would never again be weak at sea. Never again would foreign powers choke its trade. Never again would enemies sail freely to its doorstep. But dreams alone do not build empires. Decades passed, and America slowly grew stronger. Industry expanded. Steel factories roared. Railroads stretched across the land. Ports became crowded with ships carrying goods to every corner of the earth. And as the nation's economy exploded, another truth emerged. America no longer depended only on protecting itself. It now depended on protecting its trade. Goods crossed oceans daily. Oil, steel, cotton, machines, food, weapons. Everything flowed through international waters. If those shipping lanes were blocked, America would collapse economically. So the mission changed. It was no longer enough to defend coastlines. America had to defend the oceans themselves. It had to own the roads of the sea. Then came the writings of one man who would change American military thinking forever. A naval officer named Alfred Thayer Mahan argued that history proved one thing: The greatest nations in the world were the ones who ruled the sea. He studied ancient empires, European kingdoms, and global conflicts, and his conclusion was simple. Whoever controls the oceans controls the world. His ideas spread like wildfire through military circles. Presidents read his books. Admirals memorized his theories. Generals debated his warnings. America's leaders became convinced that if their nation wished to rise as a world power, it needed not just a navy, but the strongest navy on Earth. Then history accelerated violently. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, tensions were rising worldwide. European empires competed for colonies. Japan was growing stronger in Asia. Germany was building battleships. Britain ruled the waves, and America feared being left behind. The government began pouring money into shipyards. Battleships were built bigger, faster, stronger. New ports were established. Naval academies expanded. Massive steel warships replaced wooden vessels. America was transforming into a naval giant. But no one yet understood just how far that transformation would go. Then came the First Great World War. The oceans turned deadly. German submarines hunted merchant ships like wolves in black water. Supply lines became battlefields. America learned another brutal lesson. Naval power was not optional. It was survival itself. After the war ended, America kept building, but still cautiously. Then the 1930s arrived, and with them came storms darker than anyone imagined. Across the Pacific, Japan was rising with terrifying speed. It conquered lands, built warships, trained pilots, and dreamed of empire. American leaders watched nervously. Many warned that war was coming. Some said the Pacific would soon burn. Few listened. Then came the morning that changed everything forever. Pearl Harbor. In one devastating surprise attack, Japanese aircraft struck the American Pacific Fleet. Battleships exploded. Sailors burned alive. Ships sank into black smoke and fire. Thousands died. The shock was total. America had been caught sleeping. But what happened next would reshape the entire world. The attack did not break America. It awakened it. Factories exploded into life overnight. Shipyards worked day and night without rest. Men and women poured into industrial plants. Steel thundered. Sparks flew. Engines screamed. America transformed itself into a machine of war unlike anything history had ever seen. Ship after ship rolled from docks in numbers so massive they stunned the world. Destroyers, cruisers, submarines, aircraft carriers, battleships, transport ships, landing craft. America built them faster than enemies could destroy them. The nation that once feared invasion was becoming a monster of the sea. Japan could not match the numbers. Germany could not match the production. No one could. America had learned the ultimate lesson. Victory belonged not just to bravery, but to industry. Whoever could build more ships, more guns, more planes, more fuel, more steel, would survive. By the end of World War II, America had not simply won the war. It had become something entirely new. It had become the master of the oceans. When the war ended in 1945, Europe was shattered. Britain was exhausted. Germany was destroyed. France was broken. Japan was crushed. The once mighty empires that ruled the seas for centuries lay in ruins. Only one giant remained standing untouched, rich, industrial, armed, and hungry. The United States of America. It was the last great naval power left alive. And at that moment, America faced a decision that would shape history forever. It could dismantle its fleet and return home, or it could seize control of the seas permanently. It chose the second option, because another enemy was already rising from the shadows, the Soviet Union. And the next war would not be fought only on land. It would be fought in fear, in silence, in tension, across every ocean on Earth. America now understood something no previous empire had ever fully mastered. To rule the future, it could not simply protect its homeland. It had to project power everywhere. Every sea, every ocean, every continent, every hour of every day. The age of the modern American Navy had begun, and the world would never be the same again. After the smoke of World War II faded, and the world stared in shock at the ruins left behind, America stood taller than every nation on earth, richer than its rivals, stronger than its enemies, and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. But even in victory, the leaders of the United States knew peace would not last, because while Europe celebrated the end of one nightmare, another was already rising in silence from the frozen East, and its name was the Soviet Union, a powerful communist empire stretching across continents, armed with millions of soldiers, endless tanks, and a burning desire to challenge the West for control of the world. And the moment American leaders understood that this new rival could not be ignored, the entire mission of the American Navy changed forever, because no longer was the Navy meant only to defend the homeland. No longer was it meant simply to win wars when they began. Now it had to prevent wars before they even started. Now it had to become a warning, a shadow, a weapon so powerful and so visible that enemies would fear to act. And so America made one of the boldest military decisions in history. It would place its navy everywhere, not just near its own waters, but near everyone else's waters too. And suddenly American ships were no longer waiting in ports at home. They were crossing oceans daily, entering foreign seas, patrolling distant waters, docking in allied nations, standing watch near enemy territory. And this was the birth of what military experts call forward deployment, a strategy where America positioned armed forces close to possible conflict zones so they could react instantly to any threat. And to make this possible, America established naval bases around the world, in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East, in islands across the Pacific, and in places many ordinary Americans had never even heard of, because the goal was simple. If war ever came again, America would not wait weeks or months to respond. It would already be there, ready before the first shot was fired. And this strategy terrified America's enemies, because wherever trouble appeared, somehow American warships were never far away. But then America realized even this was not enough, because war was changing, battlefields were changing, and technology was changing. And one invention, above all others, would transform naval warfare forever: the aircraft carrier, a floating airfield so massive and powerful that it turned the ocean itself into a moving military base. And America embraced the carrier more aggressively than any nation in history, because with aircraft carriers, America no longer needed permission to build bases in every country. It could simply bring its own base with it, anywhere, anytime. And soon giant carriers began dominating the seas, carrying dozens of fighter jets, bombers, surveillance aircraft, helicopters, missiles, radar systems, and thousands of sailors becoming floating fortresses, capable of launching devastating attacks from hundreds of miles away. And when grouped with destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and support vessels, these became carrier strike groups, entire mobile battle kingdoms on water. And America did not build one or two, it built many, ensuring that at nearly every hour of every day, somewhere on Earth, multiple American strike groups were at sea, ready to fight within moments. And this created a terrifying truth for enemies around the world. No matter where conflict erupted, an American fleet could appear over the horizon faster than anyone expected. And during the Cold War, this constant presence became a weapon itself, because American carriers patrolled the Mediterranean to watch Soviet influence in Europe. They patrolled the Pacific to deter communist expansion in Asia. They patrolled near Korea, near Vietnam, near Cuba, near the Middle East. and in every dangerous corner of the world because America believed that showing strength prevented weakness from being exploited. And many historians argue that this overwhelming naval presence stopped countless conflicts before they ever began, because enemies knew attacking American allies might trigger immediate retaliation from warships already nearby. But keeping such a fleet active every day was unbelievably expensive. Ships needed fuel, repairs, crews, weapons, food, training, maintenance, escorts, intelligence, satellites, and constant upgrades, and yet America kept paying the cost, year after year, decade after decade, because its leaders believed one principle above all, that control of the seas meant control of the world economy. And by now, America's economy was tied deeply to international trade. Millions of barrels of oil crossed oceans, billions in goods sailed daily between nations, and almost everything the modern world needed moved through sea routes. And if those sea lanes ever became unsafe, global markets would panic, economies would collapse, prices would explode, and nations would suffer. So America made itself guardian of global shipping lanes, policing major trade routes, escorting commercial vessels when needed, hunting pirates, deterring hostile powers, and ensuring that merchant ships could travel freely across the oceans, because protecting trade was no longer just national defense. It was global economic control, and slowly the world grew dependent on American naval protection. Allies trusted it, businesses relied on it, and even rival nations benefited from it, whether they admitted it or not. But beneath all this power was another hidden truth, one more terrifying than the carriers, the destroyers, or the jets. Because while the world watched the surface, beneath the waves, America was building silent killers, nuclear submarines, machines so deadly and so secretive that they changed warfare forever. Submarines capable of staying underwater for months, invisible to radar, carrying missiles that could destroy cities, stalking enemy fleets unseen through the black depths of the ocean. And with these submarines, America created a second layer of dominance, because now, even if an enemy somehow challenged the surface fleet, death could come from below without warning. And during the Cold War, American and Soviet submarines played a deadly game of cat and mouse beneath frozen seas and dark oceans, tracking each other in silence, each knowing that one mistake could start a nuclear war, and still America kept building. Because every year technology improved, radar improved, missiles improved, sonar improved, engines improved, aircraft improved, and the Navy became more advanced, more precise, and more lethal than ever before, until many experts agreed that no Navy in history had ever matched the combination of reach, speed, technology, and raw destructive power that America possessed. And this was not just about fighting wars. It was about making sure no one dared challenge America's position, because power once gained must be defended constantly. And every president, every admiral, every general understood the same brutal truth. The day America lets its Navy weaken is the day enemies begin testing its strength. And so the fleet remained enormous, even after the Soviet Union collapsed, even after the Cold War ended, because by then America had tasted what true global dominance felt like. And nations rarely surrender that willingly, and every crisis proved the value of naval supremacy. Whether in the Persian Gulf, in the Balkans, in the Middle East, or in Asia, whenever conflict erupted, the first question was always the same. Where are the carriers? Because everyone knew if American carriers arrived, the balance of power shifted instantly, and the Navy became more than a military branch. It became a symbol, a message, a reminder to the world that America could strike anywhere, anytime, without asking permission. And as the years passed, many nations tried to challenge this dominance. Some built ships, some built missiles, some built submarines, but none could match the scale America had achieved, because the American Navy was no longer simply a fleet. It was an entire global system of logistics, bases, alliances, satellites, intelligence, training, and industrial support, all working together like a machine too large and too advanced for most nations to imitate. And yet, despite all this power, America's leaders knew something chilling. Naval dominance, once lost, is difficult to recover, because history had shown again and again that empires rise and fall when they lose control of the sea, and so America remained determined never to let that happen, never to be caught weak again, never to be surprised again, never to allow another Pearl Harbor. And so the oceans remained filled with steel, with carriers, with submarines, with destroyers, with men and women standing watch every hour, every night, every storm, every holiday, every year, guarding a nation that believed its future depended on the waters surrounding the earth. But there was still one final reason America's Navy became the greatest in history. One reason deeper than fear, deeper than war, deeper than strategy. And it begins with the unstoppable machine that made it all possible, the industrial power of America itself, because without industry, even the greatest dream of empire dies in silence. Behind every mighty empire lies a secret engine, something greater than the soldiers, greater than the generals, greater even than the weapons. And for America, that secret engine was not courage alone, it was industry. Because while men may fight wars, factories decide who wins them, and the rise of the American Navy would never have happened without the thunder of machines, the fire of furnaces, and the endless roar of production that turned America into the greatest shipbuilding force the world had ever seen. Because long before the world feared American carriers and submarines, America was mastering something even more dangerous, the ability to build faster than anyone else alive. And this power began growing in the early 20th century when America's factories exploded with life. Steel mills burned day and night. Railroads stretched across the land like veins of iron. Oil fields pumped wealth from the ground, and cities rose into the sky filled with workers whose hands never seemed to rest. And as Europe fought among itself and old empires bled resources in endless conflict, America was becoming richer, stronger, and more industrialized with every passing year. But many still did not understand the true meaning of this transformation until World War II arrived and the entire world saw what America could really do when fully awakened. Because after Pearl Harbor, America unleashed an industrial storm unlike anything ever recorded in human history. Factories that once made cars began making tanks. Factories that once made tools began making rifles. Factories that once made home appliances began making aircraft parts. And shipyards that once moved slowly suddenly erupted into miracles of speed, building warships in weeks instead of years. And soon, the impossible became reality as American shipbuilders launched vessels at such insane rates that enemies could scarcely believe the reports. While one enemy celebrated sinking a single ship, America launched 5 more. While rivals struggled to replace losses, America created fleets faster than the oceans could carry them. And by the middle of the war, the United States was producing more warships than entire enemy alliances combined. And military experts across the globe stared in disbelief because never before had one nation built so much steel, so many guns, so many planes, so many ships, and so quickly. And this taught America one unforgettable lesson. If industrial power wins wars, then industrial power must always be protected. And after World War II ended, America refused to let that machine die. Instead of slowing down completely, it maintained its military industries, kept shipyards open, kept engineers designing, kept manufacturers producing, and continued investing in the science and technology needed to stay ahead of every possible rival because American leaders understood something frighteningly well, that enemies may take years to rise, but if you wait until they are strong before preparing, it is already too late. So America kept preparing, even during peace. And as the decades passed, the Navy grew not only larger, but smarter, more advanced, more efficient, and more technologically terrifying than anything before it. Because America did not merely want more ships, it wanted better ships, faster ships, deadlier ships, smarter ships. Ships so advanced they could defeat enemies before the enemy even understood what was happening. And that is exactly what it built. Destroyers equipped with radar systems so powerful they could track threats from vast distances. Missile systems capable of intercepting attacks in midair, communication systems linking ships instantly across oceans, and command centers so advanced that admirals could monitor battles from thousands of miles away. And then came stealth technology, satellite guidance, digital warfare systems, and electronic intelligence that transformed naval combat into something almost futuristic. And once again, America surged ahead while others struggled to keep pace, because many nations could build ships, but few could build fleets integrated with satellites, nuclear reactors, missile defense networks, cyber systems, and airborne support all working together as one deadly machine. And this technological edge became just as important as the ships themselves. Because now the American Navy was not simply large, it was smarter than nearly every rival, and with each new generation of warship, the gap widened further. But perhaps the most powerful industrial advantage America possessed was not just the factories or machines. It was geography itself, because America's homeland was vast, rich in natural resources, protected by oceans, and mostly untouched by the destruction that crippled so many rivals during wartime. While Europe rebuilt bombed cities and shattered ports after World War II, America's homeland stood strong, its factories still standing, its infrastructure intact, its workers ready, and this gave America a head start no rival could match. Because while other nations struggled simply to recover, America was already preparing for the next century, and this industrial superiority fed directly into naval dominance, because every ship, every missile, every aircraft, every submarine, every engine, every radar, every screw, every plate of armor came from that same unstoppable machine. And when enemies looked at America, they realized they were not facing only a navy. They were facing the industrial might of an entire continent. And that realization alone discouraged many from ever trying to compete directly, because even if another nation built 10 ships, America could build 20. If another built 20, America could build 50. And if challenged enough, history had shown America could transform overnight into something unstoppable. But the industrial story does not end with shipbuilding, because America also mastered logistics, the hidden backbone of military power that few civilians ever think about. Because building ships means nothing if you cannot fuel them, arm them, feed them, repair them, and keep them moving across the globe. And America created a support network unlike anything in history. Fleets of supply ships carrying food, fuel, weapons, spare parts, and equipment to naval groups thousands of miles from home, floating repair stations, overseas maintenance docks, and global transportation systems allowing damaged ships to be repaired and redeployed rapidly. Meaning American fleets could stay active far from home, longer than most rivals ever dreamed possible. And this logistical miracle made the Navy not only strong but sustainable, able to remain deployed continuously while weaker navies had to return home more often. And slowly the truth became clear to the world. America's naval dominance was not built on one factor alone, not just geography, not just war, not just fear, not just carriers, not just politics, but on a complete combination of every advantage working together. Geography demanded a navy, War proved its necessity. The Cold War expanded its reach, carriers gave it mobility, and industry gave it endless life. And together these forces created a navy unlike any before it. But perhaps the most chilling part of the story is this. America's navy was never built only for defense. It was built for dominance. Because by the late 20th century, America no longer thought merely in terms of surviving attack. It thought in terms of shaping the world order itself, deciding where power could move, deciding which allies were protected, deciding which enemies were deterred, deciding which trade routes remained open, and deciding how global crises unfolded. And in many ways, the American Navy became not just a weapon, but the backbone of modern international order. Because wherever disaster struck, wherever war threatened, wherever pirates attacked, wherever hostile nations rose, American ships were often the first to arrive, and love it or hate it. The truth is, many parts of the modern world have functioned under the silent protection of that naval umbrella, but history warns us that no empire lasts forever, and today new challengers are rising. New powers are building fleets, new technologies are changing warfare again, and questions are being asked in military circles around the world. Can America maintain this dominance forever? Can any empire truly hold the seas forever? Or will one day another power rise from the shadows to challenge the throne of the oceans? And if that day comes, the world may witness a struggle greater than any before, because whoever rules the seas does not simply control water, they control trade, war, peace, politics, economics, and the future itself. And America knows this better than anyone, which is why even now it refuses to loosen its grip, refuses to step back, refuses to surrender what it spent generations building. Because to American leaders, the Navy is not optional. It is not luxury. It is not pride alone. It is survival. It is influence. It is dominance. It is empire on water. And that belief continues, shaping every decision to this very day. And so now we arrive at the final truth, the most chilling truth of all, because after understanding the geography, the wars, the Cold War fears, the aircraft carriers, the endless industrial machine, and the strategy behind global deployment, one terrifying question still remains. Why does America continue spending unimaginable wealth to maintain the most powerful navy in history even today, long after many of its greatest enemies have fallen, long after the Soviet Union collapsed, long after World War II ended, long after the old empires vanished? And the answer is both simple and deeply unsettling, because America learned from history that power is never permanent unless it is defended every single day, and every empire that relaxed, every kingdom that believed its dominance would last forever, every nation that assumed peace would protect it, eventually watched rivals rise and take everything away, and America refuses to let that happen. Because hidden deep in the minds of its military leaders is a fear older than the nation itself. The fear of becoming weak again. The fear of being caught sleeping again. The fear of waking up one day and realizing the oceans it once controlled now belong to someone else. And so America remains on constant watch, never fully resting, never fully withdrawing, always preparing for the next threat, even before the last one has ended. Because in the modern world, the seas are more important than ever before. More than 90% of global trade still moves by water. Oil crosses oceans in giant tankers. Food travels in containers, machines, medicine, electronics, weapons, vehicles, and nearly every product. Modern civilization depends on rides through shipping lanes that stretch across dangerous waters. And if those routes are blocked or threatened, the entire world can feel the pain within days. Prices rise, shortages begin, markets panic, and governments tremble. And America understands that controlling the sea means controlling the arteries of the global economy itself. And this is why the American Navy is not simply stationed near home. It patrols the South China Sea, the Persian Gulf, the Mediterranean, the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Arctic, and nearly every strategic waterway on Earth. Because America believes if trouble starts anywhere, it must be close enough to answer immediately, and over time, this has created a level of global reach never before seen in history. Because unlike older empires that controlled only nearby seas, America projects power across the entire planet, able to strike almost anywhere within hours or days. And this has made its Navy less of a national defense force and more of a worldwide shield backed by overwhelming force. But power this large creates enemies, and many nations have grown uncomfortable watching one country dominate the seas for so long. And slowly new rivals have emerged, determined to challenge the throne. Nations building new submarines, testing hypersonic missiles, launching advanced destroyers, investing in anti-ship weapons, cyber warfare, drones, and artificial intelligence, all searching for ways to counter America's naval supremacy. Because they know matching America's ship for ship may be impossible, but finding ways to weaken or bypass its advantage could change everything. And American military leaders see this danger clearly, which is why the Navy continues evolving, continues modernizing, continues adapting every year, because the greatest mistake any empire can make is assuming the weapons that won yesterday's battles will win tomorrow's wars. And so even now, America spends billions designing the next generation of destroyers, submarines, drones, stealth ships, laser weapons, autonomous systems, and missile defenses, ensuring the fleet remains one step ahead of every possible challenger. And some critics argue the spending is too much, that the cost is too high, that no nation should pour such treasure into military strength. But supporters answer with one cold statement. Weakness is more expensive than strength, because if naval dominance is lost, recovering it could take generations if it can be recovered at all. And history gives painful proof of this. Once mighty empires like Spain, Portugal, and Britain all ruled the seas in their day. But when their naval power declined, their influence faded with it, and America studies that history carefully, determined not to repeat it, determined not to become another fading empire remembered only in books. And so the Navy remains not just a branch of military service, but the very backbone of American global power. Because if the Navy vanished tomorrow, America's alliances would weaken, trade influence would shrink, deterrence would fall, and enemies everywhere would suddenly become bolder. And that is why presidents from every political side, whether loved or hated, continue funding the fleet. Because beneath all political disagreement, there remains one shared understanding. Whoever controls the oceans controls the future. And perhaps the most dramatic truth of all is this. The American Navy is not built only to fight wars. Its greatest purpose may be to prevent them, because every carrier strike group moving across the ocean sends a message louder than words. Every destroyer near hostile waters whispers a warning. Every submarine beneath the waves reminds enemies that unseen power waits below. And often the mere sight of American naval force is enough to calm allies, intimidate rivals, and force negotiations before blood is spilled, making the Navy not only a weapon of destruction, but a weapon of psychological dominance, because sometimes the threat of force is more powerful than force itself. And that is why the American flag flying from a warship in distant waters means more than patriotism. It means presence, readiness, warning, and influence all at once. And whether people admire it or fear it, one fact cannot be denied. No navy in human history has ever maintained such a constant and overwhelming presence across the globe for so long. And this did not happen by accident. It happened because America believed from the very beginning that the oceans were not barriers, they were battlegrounds, they were highways, they were lifelines, and whoever mastered them would shape history itself. And so from the fears of invasion in the early republic, to the humiliation of weak defenses, to the lessons of global war, to the terror of Pearl Harbor, to the rivalry of the Cold War, to the demands of modern trade and global politics, every chapter of American history pushed the nation further toward one unavoidable conclusion, that to survive, to thrive, and to dominate, it had to command the sea, and command it absolutely. And so it built not merely a fleet, but a force so large, so advanced, and so far-reaching that even today many experts believe no rival can truly match it in direct combat. And yet the future remains uncertain, because history never sleeps, and power always invites challenge. And somewhere beyond the horizon, new fleets are rising, new admirals are planning, new nations are dreaming of the day they may test America's grip on the oceans. And when that day comes, the seas may once again burn with the fire of history, but until then, one truth remains standing above all others. The real reason America built the most powerful navy on Earth was never for pride alone, never for glory alone, and never for war alone. It was because geography forced it, history taught it, enemies demanded it, trade required it, and power rewarded it. And once America tasted what it meant to rule the seas, it vowed never to let that power go. Thank you for watching our channel, where we uncover the hidden truths behind history and power that shaped the world we live in today. Before you go, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, your city and your country. We truly love hearing from our viewers around the globe. And if you have not already subscribed, please subscribe and like this channel so you never miss the next powerful story. Share this video with someone who loves real history, and help us continue rewriting the false history we were told. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and remember, history is never exactly what they said it was.